So tonight's class, if I ask you, I want to open up with a question, guys. And this is really the theme of my second book. I'm not sure who has read my books. I think PB, you read it. But this is the theme of my second book called How to Retire in 10 Years. So the premise is this. When I started traveling and I started working, I realized that, in my opinion, Canadians did it backwards. Okay? They, high school, university, get a job, climb the corporate ladder, house, bigger house, put your money in your RSPs, and then, when you're 67, you're going to be able to, whatever your pension can afford is the life you're going to have. Right. And it never jived with me instantly from a young age. And when I was a young adult, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why do people do that? Why does everybody follow the same path? Why is everybody on that same goddamn friggin' path of, the university and the job? Where did that start? Who taught that? Who created that? This doesn't work. And then because I looked at it, I'm like, nobody seems to be happy doing it. But why is everybody doing it? Everybody's doing the same thing, seems to be miserable, and end up broke with all these regrets. I'm like, what is happening? Right? So I started looking at things in reverse, because my natural default is, if somebody's doing something wrong, maybe you should do the opposite. Right? So I started looking, I just kind of switched my mindset. I said, what if we approach things from not what kind of life can my mediocre pension afford, but let's start the concept with, what do you want your life to be? Right? Because think about what we do. We all talk about investing. We're in these investment groups, right? But if I asked all of you guys tonight, how much money do you need? How much? I would argue that maybe none of you would have that answer down to a T, like a science like I have. Okay? We all want more money instinctively. But how much money do we need? I'm going to give you an example to see my point here. About a year ago, I was maybe a year and a half ago, approached by a couple. They were both realtors, 53 years old. Okay? They're like, Brock, let's book a session with you. We feel like there's something missing. They didn't really know what they wanted from me in terms of, something was missing. They're like, we're going to tell you our story and just what's missing here. So they were making about $500,000 a year. They had about 5 or 6 rentals, comfortably lived in vacations, did well. I mean, they had no debts, living life. But they're like, well, we're 53, we'll work to about 65, and then we're going to figure it out from there. I'm like, well, do you even like your work right now? They're like, not really. Like, we're bored of it. It's been 25 years, we've been doing this. And what I did is we started going through this exercise. I'm like, what do you want your life to be then? What do you want it to look like? Your ideal life, not your mediocre life, not your life that your CPP and your OAS and your pension from working for 40 years can afford. What do you want your life to be? Like, boom, like lay it on the table. Like, you want to travel first class, you want a mansion, you want to take care of your parents, you want to start a charity. What do you want, right? Like, map it out. And they gave it to me, right? They're helping out their grandkids. They had young grandkids, and they wanted to travel a bit. And they actually ironically, they have a condo in the same place that Sean, you were looking at, man, ironically. Capote or something like that. What's it called? Something like that, eh? Anyways.
Cabaret, where we are.
Cabaret. That's it. Yeah, that's the place. So I basically looked at it, I said, look, you guys have enough assets that if you literally sold 80% of it now and just lent out the money, you would have enough income coming in to pay for your dream life. Your dream life as defined by you right now. But the scary part, think about how scary that is. They were willing to work another 12 years at a job they didn't hate, but they certainly didn't love it. Because why? That's what our culture says we should do. We should work till 65. Why? Who made that rule up? Right? And when they were in tears because they were blindly going to spend another 12 years not living their ideal life because they just didn't know how to process that. That to me is so profound. And I see people do it every day. Right? We tell ourselves we work. We tell ourselves we invest so that we can live. Well then, shouldn't the first step be, what do you want your life to be? How do you want to live? Right? But we all do it in reverse. So what I want to do, this is why I live the way I live. I live very well, very free, because it's very, very clear to me what my lifestyle will be, what kind of life I want. My lifestyle is non-negotiable. It's because it's very clear to me on what kind of life I want to have. Okay. So think about the natural steps. So instead of the what most people do, let's go in reverse. So let's just say we map out and I'll show you kind of how to map it out later on today. Let's just say you mapped out your ideal life, dream life, not a decent life, not a not bad life, your ideal maximum life. Great. Now talk about maybe in our session, we have our strong why, right? Wow, that's clear. So I'll give you a little bit of background on my why. What is my why? Absolute freedom, non-negotiable. Every single day I wake up and I do whatever I want every day. I feel that ultimate power every day. I can cancel a meeting. I can cancel anything at my own free will with almost no consequences. That is the amount of freedom that I've built into my why. It is so strong. Okay. That to me is a strong why. I have a big, great house that is empty half the year. But when I go home, I'm going on Sunday, and I know I get that feeling. When I take an Uber from the airport and I roll up to my house, I got that feeling that I roll into that big, long driveway, and I walk in. The house is exactly how I left it. It's immaculate. The food is in the fridge because I coordinate with my assistant. I know the grass or the snow has been done because I have a crew for that. It is magical. That gives me that sense of, man, you got a nice big house that you don't even need to rent out. You don't even need to Airbnb it. That gives me my satisfaction. I take care of my mother. I called her I was in Toronto, I don't know, a week ago, 10 days ago. I can never really figure out where I am half the time. But I called and I said, Mom, I go, hello, mother. She's like, hello, son. I said, I'm going to buy you a car. And she's like, what? She's like, why would you do that? I said, well, Mom, you need a car. I said, I have the capacity to buy you a car. And I want to say thank you because I now finally realize at 43 how much you busted your metaphorical balls for me and my two brothers when our dad wasn't around. And there was silence on the phone. I could tell she was a bit emotional. That kind of stuff. That is what I want. I take care. I have college funds for my two nieces. I have college funds for my two nephews. I fly first class whenever I want, wherever I want. I work remotely. I take care of my staff. That is the lifestyle I want. It's very, very clear. Very, very clear. So once you have that figured out, guys, once your life is clear to you, then you say, okay, how much is this life going to cost me? Right? My life cost me about $65,000 a month. Okay. Now, I don't know if somebody choked or laughed or spit or something, but
that's a big number.
Well, here's the thing. That number could be high, could be low, depending on your lifestyle. Now, keep in mind, I have a house that cost me probably $12,000 a month that I really don't need, but I want it, and I will continue to have it for as long as I want it. I have my staff, which is like 15 grand a month. I take care. I have my Ferrari payments like $4 grand a month or whatever. Like whatever. It's like my travel. My travel budget is excessive, but I don't care, right? So I'm saying this so once you know your lifestyle, again, ideal lifestyle, go big. Go, because look we got 80 years, guys. We got 80 years. What is the point of settling for a decent life? Why not go for the great life? Why not go for the ideal life? I don't understand how anybody could not go for the ideal life with the 80 years we have. It makes no sense to me. Okay. So once you know the cost, okay, and your cost will be different than my cost. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Once you know the cost, then you can say, okay, that's how much income that I need. That if that's coming in every month, I don't need anything else. My ideal lifestyle is paid for. Right? Think about that concept. If you have enough money coming in to pay for your dream life, tell me why you would need more income. Right? Because most people say, oh, I want more income because I want to be able to do that. That's because they're not at their ideal life yet. I'm talking about you're already at the ideal life. You can't get any better. Well, then you don't need more than that. And I'm going to be announcing soon that I am now in the phase of my life where I'm going to start liquidating my portfolio. So in the next week or so, I'm going to be sending it out to my group, all my contacts, my lenders, my investors, Facebook. So I'm starting the liquidation phase of most of my assets. Why? Because I have enough now that when I liquidate it, I'm done. I'm not going to say I'm never going to invest again. Investing to me is fun now. Okay. I do it because I like it, but I'm there. My ideal lifestyle is taken care of because I've been consciously focused on it for the last 10 years. Right. So once you have that number, okay, and your number is, everybody's going to be different. Okay. Let's just say it was 20 grand a month. Okay. So 20 grand a month, you need passive income. Okay, let's talk about it. Then what is the next phase? What is the next question you should ask yourself? Anybody?
What to do with it, maybe?
Well, no, you know what you're going to do with it? You're going to pay for your ideal lifestyle.
Okay.
What do I need to get there? Basically, the question is, thank you, Joanne. How do I get 20 grand a month? Right? How do I get 20 grand a month? Right? So then you start looking at, okay, how do I get 20 grand a month? You would naturally look at next step. Okay, what can I invest in that produces passive income? For me, I've chosen, for the most part, private lending. And I'll say private lending from just a perspective of how you can see the math. Okay, but you can invest in cash flow producing real estate, dividend producing stocks, crypto. You could have private equity. I've had a couple of realtors that have these EXP residual incomes. There's different things, right? Bonds, right? Let's just say we chose private lending for the sake of math tonight. And private lending was giving 12%. Well, if you need 20 grand a month to pay for your dream life, that means you need $2 million lent out to cover that dream life. You guys see the math? $2 million lent out at 12% is 20 grand a month. So then the next step is like, okay, how in the world am I going to get $2 million? But here's the thing. I didn't say it was going to be easy. But what this simple exercise gives you absolute clarity on how much you need, right? And why you need it. Joanne, am I hitting home here?
Yeah, you are. And we've had a similar conversation. But listen, I'm just wondering about taxes.
Okay, so when you're building, I'm going to show you guys a budget later. But with taxes is when you're talking about your ideal life, right? Mm-hmm. You factor in all of the expenses that you're still going to occur in the event you just stop working altogether. And that's going to be, there's going to be some tax implications. That's where you put that into your budget. So let's just say you said, I need 20 grand a month. Mm-hmm. That includes whatever you have to pay in taxes.
Okay.
Right. So then you work backwards, right? So, but yeah, taxes are a factor. I mean, but I am like, there's jurisdictions, aka St. Lucia, Barbados, that have a lot less taxes. Just a FYI out there. We'll talk about another class. But now you see the clarity, right? Because most people, when you think about it, if you ask anybody, I challenge you all to just ask 5 of your closest contacts, how much money do you need? And this is what you'll hear, because I've been asking this question my whole career. Oh, probably a few million. 10 million. People spit out answers because they don't want to not have an answer. But they've never really gone through the exercise. And that's why people just continue to just go through the motions, not realizing that you might already be there. Dustin, you have a question, bro?
Yeah, I recall you mentioning this before, I think at one of your conference, like, what is your freedom number? Is that is that right, if I recall?
Yeah, I call it a freedom budget, right? Because basically what I'm saying is that absolute freedom, right, is when your ideal life is paid for. because after that, everything you do, work, invest is like a bonus. You do it because you want to. You do it because it's pleasurable. You do it to help other people. You don't do it for money anymore. You already got the money, right?
Yeah.
So I want you, this exercise is so important. Yeah, okay, Mark, go for it, buddy.
So you said you're going to liquidate all your assets. You're still going to continue to operate your business, though.
Yeah. So when I say liquidate, it's like, and it's not like a fire sale. I'm not going bankrupt. I'm not just like some conspiracy. Oh, Carney's getting in, so I'm just buying fuck Canada. No, it's a strategic. I've been on this path of strategy for probably since I was 35, where I really started focusing on this concept, the concept of time, the concept of the whys, everything. So it's very clear to me. And I knew one day I would reach that level where I'm like, I don't need to grow anymore. I can kind of, I use the example of that plane taking off and there's huge thrust. And once you get to cruising altitude, you just kind of cruise. I don't need to grow anymore. I could grow more if I wanted to, but now it's out of maybe passion, desire, greed, whatever. I don't need it. I'm very well aware of what my dream life is and I'm living it. It's paid for. Right? There's nothing more that I would want to do in terms of lifestyle. So therefore, it's now, I'm entering that phase where I'm going to start liquidating. It's going to probably be a 3-year process because there's tax implications and things like that. And I probably won't sell everything. I'm not just like selling everything and living out of a backpack like a hippie. No. But I can liquidate a good chunk of my stuff because the growth is there. Because cash flow is great once you have enough assets to produce the cash flow. And you guys can see this exercise with, everybody talks about cash flow. The problem with cash flow is when you're in your beginning stages, right? Let's just say you needed 20 grand a month. Okay. Think about it. And this happens all the time. This is why everybody ends up broke. Not only why, there's a lot of reasons people end up broke, but one of the reasons is, let's just say you needed 20 grand a month. Okay. So you need $2 million invested, but you got $500,000 in equity. Okay. And they're like, I'm going to buy a rental property to make $500 a month. The math doesn't work. Okay. How is that $500 a month going to get you to a $20,000 a month passive income situation? Right? Even if you sold your $500K equity, okay, you lend that out. Okay, there's $5 grand a month. But now you have no other properties. The math just isn't there. So when people focus on cash flow too early on, you just lose out on growth and then you end up broke because you don't have enough assets. You got to focus on the assets first. It's massively, fundamentally important. But our society, the industry in whole, because most people are just not educated and they never think profoundly, it's all cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. And you end up 60 years old with a little bit of equity and just like, and then you're worried about your pension and your CPP and all that stuff. It's scary, right? So that's why when I never, cash flow was only important for me in terms of, can I pay my bills this month? Right? I always focused on growth. Why? Because I recognize the importance of growth. I'm not saying cash flow is not important. It's important to the point of sustainability. I'm not going to say buy a property so it can grow and you're going to go bankrupt in 2 months because you can't afford the payment. That's foolish, right? But cash flow is important later on in life once you have the assets, right? Right. So, does anybody have any questions? Is anybody saying to themselves, "Fuck, I've been doing everything wrong"?
I've been in a panic ever since I met you because I can't apply what you keep being right about.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how entirely, right?
Yeah, no, every single day I get a long email from Pete, and I've become used to it, right? And it's just like the demons inside his head is, because it's you're trying to break what society has told you that your whole life, right? About all this stuff, right? But I go back to my original point is like, most people are broke. That's statistic. You can just Google this on Statistic Canada. Average net worth is like $500,000. Okay. Most investors are broke. Okay. Very few investors are multi-millionaires. Very few. Maybe at best $1 million or $2 million. And think about your own circles. How many do you know that are 10 million net worth plus? Very few, if any. Right? But everybody's doing the same thing. Right? So it shouldn't be about just surviving. Right? So to that extent, is like, naturally my default is like, I'm not doing anything that someone who's broke is doing. If you're giving me advice, or you're on a stage, or you're coach, I'm like, you don't have anything. Why would I think about taking what you're saying seriously? It makes no sense to me. But that's how society works. So it's the people. So my point I'm trying to get, you have to break that mind shift. And I know you guys are all hearing this, and not just hearing it, but like absorbing it, because the math is the math. And the facts are the facts. Most people, you're just going through this process, buying this property, not really knowing why. And you meet somebody, you're like, oh, I'm going to do an assignment, I'm going to do a flip. And it's just all this information being spun around, and you spin in circles of 25 years and end up in this situation like, well, that didn't really work out for me. There was no clarity. Right? So the first step, so again, I didn't say it was going to be easy, but let's just say in that 20K a month example, right? That this was me. And that's why I believe in being razor focused. If I knew it was 20 grand a month and my net worth was, say, 800K at the time, I'm like, I need 1.2 million more in net worth. I would be so razor focused on growing another 1.2 on my books. So if someone comes to me like, oh, I have an opportunity, it's cash flow, or I have an opportunity for this, I'm like, where is my net worth going? Because mathematically, I need it to be $2 million based on my ideal life as defined by me. Right? It's clarity. And I know most of you here have probably never actually thought about, how much do I need? I don't know. You're just kind of like, I'm looking at this property because it seems like a good investment. And as for a lot of my coaching, it's like, a good investment for what? A good investment for whom? For what purpose? Right? Does it fit into your goal, your life? And that's where you need to have razor focused clarity on what you're on how much money you need for what you're trying to accomplish in life, right? The investing should be the means to the goal, right? Investing is fun, and it can be fun, but the ultimate goal should be life, in my opinion. If you disagree with that fundamental concept, then maybe you don't have to follow this advice. But to me, investing is part of life. It's not life. Life is broad. It's much broader, much deeper. So for the exercise is the ideal life. Okay. So how do you determine this? Because I've coached a few people on this, like one-on-one over my, career. And it's difficult. It's difficult to do, because here's what's going to happen. And I'm going to say, okay, guys, go home for homework. You're going to start thinking about your dream life. Your default is going to be just start writing things down, because it sounds like an answer. Oh, I want to travel. I'm like, okay, why do you want to travel? You don't travel now. Like why do you want to travel? I want to take care of my parents. You don't take care of them now. You just start writing things that sound like answers to justify that you're doing this exercise, right? The problem with that, it doesn't work. Okay. So my advice for how do you determine your ideal life? Okay. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have a spreadsheet for this too. Okay. I have spreadsheets for everything, as I mentioned last class. It's literally, I map out all of the things that I want my life to look like. And my recommendation is you have to tie your goals to an emotion. Okay. So when I'm so, and a goal without emotion generally does not become a reality because it's not really real, right? So if you have a goal, I'll give you that. I'll give you an example of me traveling. Me traveling and traveling first class for the most part whenever first class is available. I walk into the airport now. A lot of the times I do carry-on only. I have these 2 special bags, like 2 carry-on bags that cost about $1,000, and you can pack like a month of stuff in these 2 bags. I don't even know how it works, but it works. Okay. I roll up in the airport. I have Nexus, right? I have 3 credit cards that have special privilege at the airports. Normally, I leave from Ottawa. That's where I'm based out. There's a special line, right, for Nexus people and people with these credit cards. I roll up to the airport with my carry-on bags. I already got my boarding pass on my phone. I go right through security. There's never anybody there. I go right through security and I'm at the gate 10 minutes after I get to the airport. At the gate. I go to the business class lounges and I'm chill. That makes me feel good. Makes me feel accomplished. Okay. It makes me feel that all of my hard work in life has paid off because I can travel the way I want to travel. That is a goal with an emotion. Okay. That is much different than saying, I want to travel. Saying, I want to travel, that's not a goal. It's not very clear. Right? I want to help out my parents. No. I want to buy my mom a car because my mom she doesn't walk well. She needs a new car that has more room for her. When I was younger, she gave me her car to drive to high school where she didn't have a car to go out and do her own errands. I want to pay that back. That's deeper than saying I want to take care of my parents. Okay. They both sound like the same goal, but one has an emotion tied to it and one doesn't. Okay. My nieces and nephews, right? I take care of them. It makes me feel privileged to be able to take care of my nieces and nephews like they're my own children, where my brothers do not have the financial resources to put money in their college fund. I tie that into a very, very specific, very, very clear personal satisfaction. And the list goes on and on. I told you about when I roll up to my house, I feel like there's this sense of like peace. As much as I love to travel, I equally love coming home. And when I come to that house, there's just this overwhelming sense of tranquility and calmness. And I love this house and it's good for me. And it's like, it's perfect. It's emotional, right? My Ferrari that I have that I don't need, but I remember when I was 8 years old, I had a poster of a Ferrari in my room. I remember back when posters were a thing, right? I had a poster. And I still remember, I was 8 years old. I'm like, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get that car, right? That Ferrari is a childhood dream come true of mine. It's like, dude, you did it, man. You promised yourself when you were 8. And I remember promising 35 years ago, I made a promise to myself and I did it. Things like that. Those are goals with emotions. And when you have strong emotions attached to a goal, it's going to happen, guys. I forget. I don't know which coaching class. I remember talked about before. I said, I asked somebody, one of the students, did you buy a house today? And they're like, well, no, because most people don't buy houses every day. But I said, look it. If I pointed a gun at your head and I said, you better buy a house tomorrow, I'm going to shoot you in the head. I said, do you think you could buy a house tomorrow? He's like, yeah. Oh, it was the guy, it was a realtor from Kingston. He's like, yeah. I said, exactly. It's not about capacity. You could buy a house if you really, really wanted to, if you had a clear motivation. Right? That was the problem. There wasn't a big enough emotion attached to that goal. So when you're mapping out your ideal life, guys, don't just write things down pretending you're doing the exercise. Think about it. It's more like not what I want to do. How do I want to feel? right? How do I want to, how do I want my life to feel like? Any questions, comments? Did I hit everybody tonight? Everybody in deep thought? Does anybody do this?
It's a lot to ponder.
It is a lot to ponder, and thanks for saying that. And it's a very difficult exercise to do, because when I've tried to help a few people in the past kind of map it out, because here's the thing, sometimes I see people that I'm like, it's crazy. It's like, I see that you can have your ideal lifestyle right now, but you don't see it. That is like crazy to me. It's like, what you're doing, you're just doing it because you're blind, right? So you try to go through this exercise, and it's tough. Why? Because it's not normal for us to do it. It's not normal in our society. Our society and the world in general has this like default way that you should live and work. And it's just, in my opinion, incorrect, because the majority of people don't. Like, how many people do you know? One sec, Jack. How many people do you know that you would say, fuck, that person lives their dream life? Like, one person, Eric? Who's that, bud?
Yeah, it's you, buddy.
Yeah, I only know one.
Look, I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, but it is. I mean, it's not a pat on my back, but it's just that because this has been so clear to me from the get-go. Like, my lifestyle is not negotiable. And I was talking to my marketing person today, and we're talking about just that. She's like, well, what are you doing right now? I said, I'm going to the gym. Well, she's like, well, do you have time for yourself? I said, I always have time for myself. I make it it's not negotiable. Like this morning, if you just look through my day, I woke up at 6, went out to the beach, had coffee, chatted with a few staff. I did some emails. I had Portuguese for an hour and a half. Live Zoom. Then I drove to my lawyers here in St. Lucia. We had a nice hour and a half chat, probably 2, finalized my holding company. I drove up the coast to explore, came back, went to the gym, a couple more emails, went back and had a cappuccino, watched the sunset, came for this coaching call. Then I'm going to go do whatever later. That's a balance, right? It's not negotiable. That's life. I do not, under any circumstance, procrastinate life for anything. I don't. Zero chance. I will never do it. Life is what we have. Life is what we're living. And our default is to always say, we're going to do that later. We're going to do that later. But you won't. If your default is to procrastinate, then you will continue to procrastinate. That is what your default is. And that's how our society is. So when you're doing, actually, let's go to Jackie. You had a question?
No, I had more of a comment. So
Okay.
do you want to finish, or do you want me to?
Well, I mean, I'll never finish. So you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess with our coaching call, Brock, is that I think that a lot of this is awareness. And I don't think a lot of us really know how to be self-aware, because we're so in the outside world. We're trying to make things happen. We are usually just kind of like having things happen, and then knee-jerk reaction to it. And so when do we ever hear of clarity or imagination, or like things like how are you feeling today, asking your own self? Like, I think these things are just really important, but they're not very common. And so it seems that that's what you're threading together here, is that in order to reach, we all want financial freedom here. In order to do that, we have to first step back and start to become aware, start that inner journey inside. What do you want? Why do you want it?
I agree entirely. And it's just like, yeah, self-aware. It is difficult, right? But and how you become self-aware is, I'd say, easier said than done, but you have to first recognize that this is not really working for me, right? It's not serving me. And that is just like, you have to make sometimes conscious, like you have to be present and conscious, okay? And always constantly analyzing what you're doing, right? Like, when are you building a big company? Okay, well, why? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I started it, now I'm still building it. I'm like, why? Well, why are you doing it? I don't know. Like, it's like, ask yourself, is it what you want. Is it serving you? In which capacity? Is it not serving you? That's how self-awareness comes in. And Jackie, I don't know if you want to share with the group so Jackie and I, we had a one-on-one session, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. I had never met you. And what did I tell you? And a little bit of background, I won't go too deep, but Jackie has never really been able to pull the trigger on an investment, despite her having the capacity to do so. So what I recommended to Jackie to kind of overcome that hurdle is I said, we need to set real dates. Because I go, think about this, Jackie. You've been procrastinating for X amount of years. I'm not going to say, right? X amount of years that you've been in this world, right? So your default is to be procrastinating. So we need to set a firm date that you're going to do something. Because without a date, your default, again, will be to push that down the road. Why? Because you've pushed it down the road every day of your existence. So I said, this is what we're going to do, Jackie. It might sound a bit fluffy, but it's going to work because I do it. I said, you're going to write yourself a letter. And you're going to say, Jackie from Jackie. Dear Jackie, today's June 1st, and oh my God, I finally got the keys to my first investment, blah, 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 blah. And here's the emotion that was attached to it. I also had her say, I want you to put in because I do it all the time when I have something big, I put it in my bathroom, I frame it. And I had her frame the date. And you did frame that date, right?
I did. Didn't I see my bathroom?
Look, this beautiful little frame. It was like June 14th, and she had this letter. I'm like, and that is going to become real. Because think about the way it works. Is like when you're, and Sean, that's why I like what you were. If you're going to buy this condo, keep posting it, man, because you will not let yourself down if it's public. So think about if you had this frame in your bathroom, right? Every time you brush your teeth to go to the bathroom, like, fuck, that frame keeps staring at me. It says June 14th again. It keeps. I'm like, and like you can't consciously work our way around it. Like that frame's there. You can tell yourself, I'm not going to do it. You go back to the bathroom. Like, God damn, it's still there. You're going to do it because you're not going to disappoint yourself when you've gone through the exercise of writing yourself a framed letter. It becomes real. Okay. And it's going to work. I have no doubt that we're going to pull the trigger. I've done that. I do that with all my goals, guys. Like I have my 20 top goals of the year. I've been doing this for 8 years. It's my screensaver on my phone, and it's a framed copy in my bathroom. I read it twice a day when I brush my teeth, or 3 times a day if you're a dentist. Sorry, yes, it's 3 times a day if you're a dentist. If any dentists in the office, yeah, and I floss, yeah, and I floss every day. Yeah, and it becomes real. Why? Because we do not. It's when it's there, we actually, our default is to not want to disappoint ourselves. But when you don't have real dates, you can get away with, you're not disappointing yourself. You're going to do it later, but you're not. There's a difference here in the psychology. Cool. Okay. So everybody looks sad now. This is, I say it a lot, but this is one of my kind of favorite topics because it's like, it's really it's foundational in my opinion, right? This should be absorbed and in your soul before you start looking at like, what should I buy? A duplex, a triplex? Should I do a flip? I'm like, I don't know. Like that's when people ask me, what should I invest in? Like I get that question all the time. Like, I don't know. Who are you? Like, I don't know what you want. Right? I've never met you and you ask me what I should invest in. And that it's sad to me because they just don't know what to ask, right? They just don't know. They've never gone through an exercise of like, I don't know why am I doing this? I don't know why you're doing it. You reached out to me, right? I had a message. Oh my God, I'm going to share. It's kind of the same. What was it here? The other day, one of my old mortgage clients. Well, basically she said, one of our property that we bought, 6 months ago is cash flow negative. We're thinking about selling it and moving to the Dominican Republic. We heard that was good. Should we do it? Right? Like, I don't know. Do you want to do it? Like, do you want to move to the Dominican Republic? I don't know. Do you? Like, it's one of those questions where it just highlights that people are not self-aware of what they're looking for. And that's sad. It's upsetting to me because That is not, I can write back to say, oh yeah, you should move to the Dominican Republic. I don't know if you should. I don't know if you should, Sean. I don't know. It's internal. It should be very, very clear. Like for me, it's so clear on what will work for me and what won't work for me and what will serve me and not serve me that it's so easy to make decisions. And Pete, I know Pete, you struggle with, you have like, I call it the Vietnamese restaurant syndrome, where you go there and there's like 17,000 options on the menu and they're all slightly different. Soup with egg and peanut on top, soup with egg and peanut on top with chicken, soup with egg and peanut on top with chicken. And I'm like, oh my God, man, there's too many choices, right? But
Like the video store days, you'd be there for 45 minutes.
It's so much, right? You're overwhelmed by choice where it just paralyzes you. But once you become so clear on what you want and what's going to serve you in that path to what you want, it's just like, no, I have zero interest. I don't care. I don't need it. And that's why when people are on the real estate coach, the first session I opened up with, I told people, even though it's ironic that I'm teaching a real estate empire building course, and my opening line from the first module was, I'm here to teach you how to invest in real estate. I'm not buying any more real estate. It was literally my opening line. It's kind of ironic, but because I said, like, I've lost my why. I don't have that why anymore. I don't need that real estate anymore. I don't need the growth. I've hit enough growth based on my ideal life. I don't need any more. Right? So that's why if someone said, do you want to invest in this? I'm like, I don't want to. No, I don't want to at all. I don't need to, and I don't want to. It's very, very clear. But if you don't have that clarity, there's the default, and everybody does this. If you don't have clarity, you're like, okay, I'll look at that deal. Right? Send me the info. Right? Send me the info. I'll take a look at it. Why are you looking at it? Like, how do you know it's like, how is it going to serve you? Right? There's no clarity, and it just becomes overwhelming. You start looking at everything and analyzing everything and all these options, and you just don't know where to turn because you've never really tied your investments and your business to that life goal. Questions? Pete,
What's that?
are you just heavy breathing, or is there a question coming?
I had something to say there. I'm trying to articulate it properly, but I guess what I'm wondering is, do you think, and I kind of think this, the vast majority of people, and I'll include myself in this, will go through motions that are, let's say, financially productive, but not necessarily exciting, because they're waiting to discover what their real path should be. But instead of making shitty decisions, they make better ones in the interim. Because take you for example, I think you're kind of a unicorn where everything lined up for you. You made it happen, but you had the wherewithal.
I had more failures than anybody in this world, but not everything in this world, but I had a lot of failures, right? Trial and error.
Oh yeah, but you did stuff that kind of called to you, it just kind of, like, you're not a mechanic because you're not good at it, you're not interested in it, but you found what you're good at.
Let me clarify the point. I understand your point, but let me clarify why I might be a unicorn is that fact that I pulled the trigger on everything.
Right.
Trigger on everything. And that by pulling the trigger, I can determine that works for me, that doesn't work for me. And over a 10-year period, I start to recognize exactly what I want and exactly what I don't want. Most people don't know what they want because they never pulled the trigger on anything. How do you know you want to be a real estate investor if you've never been a real estate investor?
Touche.
How do you know you want to travel or don't want to travel if you've never traveled, never backpacked? Right? You don't know. So people just say, "Oh, I might like that, or I might like that, so maybe I'll do this." Well, do it and then figure it out. So that is the unicorn in me. It's just that I pull the trigger at all costs. I'm not, because it's just like there's no other way for me to determine, Pete, what's good for me until I try something out. How do you know if you like a certain type of food unless you try that food? Right? And then Tammy.
I guess it's courage too, huh? It comes down to courage. I mean, it's a big thing.
Courage, maybe, but to me, it's still very clear. I have 80 years in this world, 90 if I'm lucky, right? I'm just going to do it. It's an experience to me. And if I don't like it, I move on. Tomorrow, I will wake up and I will continue to breathe. Okay? If I try something today, it doesn't work out, tomorrow's another day. Nothing's going to kill you literally. But we all think that if we make a wrong decision, the world is going to end. I can tell you the world will not end. It's going to roll over you. Time will roll over you.
Mm-hmm.
It is. This world does not stop for anybody. The most important people in the world can't slow this world down. The days will come, the nights will come, and it'll keep going, man. So I just have that instinctively in my body that no matter what I do, tomorrow is going to be another day. I will survive that and move on. I will continue on until I breathe in my last breath. And everything I've done is an experience. Everything. And if you don't do things, you don't have experiences. And therefore, you don't know what you like and you don't know what you don't like because you've never done anything. Tima and Tammy.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to say, I'm in my car, just like I was driving and doing some errands, but first of all, I wanted to say thank you. It was like one of the best coaching calls that I had, not only with you, like I have other coaching calls, but thank you. That was
You're
great.
welcome.
It kind of helped me, I would say I don't come from, I don't know how many people here didn't know me. I don't come from a place of privilege. So kind of, Brack, when you talked about your mom, kind of it connected with me. And I always was like, okay, well, I'm just trying to do it. I have nothing to lose, just I like it, just just do it. And then I got to a point that I was like more cautious because I had something to lose. And then what you told me today was like, okay, Tima, you have to just go back to who you were before and just even I was doing things when I was younger and probably more, I can't say brave, but kind of more cautious, less cautious. I wouldn't do stupid things, still I would calculate, but I was less afraid of losing. But then you said something very important today, we only got this one life. Just do it the way you want. No, just even if you fail, there will be another day. You're going to make it like next day, next move.
It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. People say like people over exaggerate how negative something will be. I mean, it's just a mistake will be. It's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
You're going to roll. You're going to wake up and you're going to continue through life. Thanks for the comment.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tima. We always appreciate you. Tammy, welcome to the group and let's go. This is Tammy's first session, so let's go.
It took time, but it's here. I think the comment that Pete made in regards to unicorn kind of ties back to our first discussion. Should I buy the condo? Shouldn't I? Should I live there? Shouldn't I? The reality is, when you describe a unicorn, he's going to try it, right? He's going to go, he's either going to buy it, he's going to stay there. If he doesn't like it, it's going to change. He'll sell it, he'll move. Becoming a unicorn is often just trial and error. And it's a matter of knowing that you can change anything at any time. And as you get the things that you want, you may decide you don't want those things anymore. Mm-hmm. And then you'll change those things as well. So a unicorn is someone who can be versatile in everything that they do.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tim. And just on that point too, there's a difference between being like just trying things and pull the trigger and being reckless. Okay, so for Sean, you're debating buying this condo. I'm not saying just do it, man. Don't think about it. Just buy it and then figure it out. No, do your homework, do your due diligence. But my point is, either pull the trigger or shut up and stop talking about it. Right? There's no dancing around. The dancing around is what causes inaction. And I'm not saying Sean is doing that. I'm just saying in general, you do your homework, you get the facts, and then you make a decision. That's the difference. Okay. I'm not saying just go out wild cowboy and just start making bad decisions left, right, and center, and then just say, oh, it's cool, it's experiences. No. I mean, those are experiences, but it's a bit reckless. But you gather the info, pull the trigger or don't pull the trigger. I think, it was PB.
I think for me, the takeaway is to be able to recognize when you reach your why, and it's okay to change them why.
100%.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yep.
So that was a good one. Yeah.
Keep my eye on that point too. So I talk about this freedom budget, right? Those will be continuing like everything. Like they continue to move and shake, and you have to constantly adjust, right? Because I'll give you, an example. You have this freedom budget, and then your parents get sick, and they need you to care for them, and that is important to you, and that's an extra $5,000 a month. Okay, things are going to change. Or if I became a parent, right? Well, I'm adding. My kid's going to get everything, so I'm going to add that strong to my budget. It changes my why. It changes the budget. So you have to be flexible, okay? But you at least need to have a structure of what you're putting in that ideal life at all time. Tima, do you have a follow-up? Is your hand just randomly up? Okay, I think I should have made a mistake. Any other comments, guys? Tima, do you have a question? Okay, no. Joanne.
So this subject hits home for me because I've been trying to figure out how much is enough, when do I retire, do I port my pension, do I invest, all these questions keep me up at night. And somebody said, just put the pros and cons on a piece of paper, and it's so simple, it doesn't help, right? So, but today, just figuring out that it's based on net worth and not really on a certain amount, like that calculation I haven't done, right? So this was very helpful.
Thank you. That not entirely net worth. It's just the fact that a net worth can be liquidated. Really, It's about having the income to cover your lifestyle, which indirectly is realized by liquidating a net worth.
Yeah.
But if someone just says but for example, you could have no net worth and all of a sudden some sugar mama, sugar daddy just says, I'm going to give you $20,000 a month. Well, you don't have a net worth, but there's income there to cover your lifestyle. I just want to give you the clarity on that. But for most of us, yes, we have to build and then liquidate. Yes, Arun.
Hey, bro, great topic. One thing I wanted to ask is, so when you started at 35, to get serious, were you always clear this is where you will end up, or you gain the clarity as you progress through those years and started seeing it?
Yeah, I started my career at 30, so 13 years ago, and I would say, sorry, Michelle, I missed you, but I'll come back to you. So I started my career at 30, and then I just started buying real estate, not knowing why. It was just more of internal, saying I have to do this, not really sure why. Probably 3 years later, where I started meeting more clients, because I bought 20 properties in my first 3 years of my career, not really knowing. So people started reaching out to me like, hey, how are you doing this? What's going on? And I started knowing people's files, and I started seeing that people, no matter what they did for work, no matter their background, everybody was kind of doing the same thing. They're all broke, and no matter what they make and what they're just all broke. So I'm like, and that's where I started around 33, 34. I'm saying what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense, right? So then I started just, as Jackie mentioned earlier, being self-aware. I started saying, okay, here's the facts. This doesn't make any sense. And I kind of looked at it from I was able to step back and say, okay, if that's what everybody does and everybody is in here, and I don't want to be here, I want to be there, therefore I should do that. So it becomes, so your question, over time, I just became super clear, but it was around 10 years ago. And then once I figured out oh my God, I have to just change the approach. Then it was so razor focused. I've been razor focused for about 10 years in terms of, I made a post about a week ago on the difference between a vision and a plan, right? And I said, so if you guys go back to my Facebook maybe a week ago, it was literally everybody talks about this plan. I need a plan. Plans are changeable. They're short term, right? Where the vision, though, doesn't change. The vision is broad. So I had this big vision of X amount of net worth, X amount of this for a specific lifestyle reason. And the short-term plans were what changed, and no matter what went wrong or if I got kicked down, the vision was still there. The broad vision was still big, right? So I think most of us struggle because there's no vision. There's no vision that ties into your lifestyle. It's just these little plans. Well, I'm going to buy a property because this sounds good and this might work and I might make this much money in a year. I'm like, okay, but where is that tying into the big picture? There is no big picture. Michelle.
So thank you. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for being you. I tell you this a lot lately because I'm getting laser focused.
Good.
Um
And I've watched you growing over the 2 years I've known you, and it's quite impressive because
yeah,
you are focused.
thank you. So I'll tell like very, very quickly people who don't know me, like what, So I some people are like, "Oh, you should be so like." I don't know. I don't listen to a lot of people except you.
Yep.
But they're almost like telling me to be scared. Like I'm very aware of my debt. I'm very aware of where I am, but I'm also proud of it. Like I was going for a PhD. I had a career in psychology. That's like 100 grand in school fees. I bought a car. I had a little bit of credit card debt, nothing massive, but around like 130 grand. I decided to quit everything I was doing and follow my passion, which I've grown quite a bit. Now and I also acquired a small property that I will develop in the future. So now I'm just kind of like looking at all the pieces. Again, I'm very aware of my debt. I'm aware of what I'm making. I'm tracking my cash flow, everything, my net worth, every single thing. So I want to get to a place where I can move and shake things a little bit more. But I also want to be smart about it. I want to eliminate some of the, you know what I mean? Um, I'm in a weird job. I'm a personal stylist, so I could get a $10,000 contract tomorrow. Like my world is very crazy. So yeah, so I have opportunities and I'm trying to grow in line with those opportunities. Because some people in my field are, I'm charging like regular Ottawa rates, but some people are charging $10,000 for an afternoon to do exactly what I do. So I'm just trying to align my goals and what I do to still help a lot of people grow my net worth. And I have a big vision like you. I've never stepped down. When I was little, I dreamt of traveling the way you do. I've still traveled. I've traveled poor. I've traveled with a little bit of cushion. And the more comfortable you are, the better your experience is. And I want things. I want a big life, and I'm not gonna back down. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that kind of self-testimonial, and it's good to see again. When I first met you, there was not a lot of clarity, and there's not a lot of clarity in most people. That's a very common thing, right? You have a lot of, and being clear is not a matter of intelligence. Everybody on this call, I would consider intelligent. Pete, you're questionable, buddy. I'm just joking. I love you. You know, I love you. Pete and I have a special bond. But it's not a matter of intelligence. It's just a matter of we don't go through the exercise. We're not taught it. That's not our default. You don't go in school and people start analyzing your dream life. That's not an exercise we do, right? We're kind of just like,
I wasn't even encouraged to dream where I was from.
Think about like even in high school, right? Like the default is you start prepping you for university, right? So your parents are talking about university and you're prepping. Then when you're in university, before you graduate, they start talking about what job are you going to apply for, right? And it's just like you're on this conveyor belt that's kind of predetermined for you, and you don't even recognize what's happening because you're just young, and that's what everybody's doing, right? Eric.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting here and I'm listening, and I think at one point too, what happens is some of us get higher up there, close, but are having trouble pulling that other trigger, right? Like, I mean, I'm myself now, this is what I do full time, but Tara's still not there yet, right? And pulling the trigger of getting her to leave her cushiony job and maybe liquidating a few of our properties is kind of going against everything I've done up to date, right? So I think that's where I'm struggling.
And that's natural. And why do you think that's natural? Because you've put in the time, you've built it, and it's counterintuitive for a human being to, quote unquote, destroy something we've built, right? Yeah. Especially with real estate. Acquiring real estate and a big portfolio, and you have a pretty decent portfolio. It's like that's a lot of blood and sweat and energy and effort and anguish and dealing with the lenders and the investors. That's tough to just let that go. You've developed this personal relationship with it, right? But that doesn't change the fact that at some point it makes sense for it to go.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just like an internal thing. You just have to recognize, like, it's not serving me. It was good while it lasted. It served a purpose. It no longer serves me. Therefore, I need to say goodbye. Tammy.
So I think two things.
Yep.
Eric, when my mom was going to retire, she was a government worker. She worked since she was like 16 years old in the government. And when we calculated, I sat down with her and I said, Mom, you hate your job. You've been doing it since you were 16. You're 58 years old. They say you can, she had all the years put in. No, she had all the time put in, but retiring was like, they say 63 or whatever. I said, okay, if you were to do this for another 7 years, how much more money would you actually get once you do retire? And we calculated, it was like $200 and some a year, a month. So I said, what can you do for $200 and some a month? How can you get that money so that you can retire now because you hate your job and you want to leave and everything's changing. All the young ones are coming in, they're doing different things. So we just figured out a plan to get her that $200 and some that she was missing. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of it is, like I have 3 children. So my children, 18, 20, and 28, married with a baby on the way. And when they went through their sports and their school, and I was 7 days a night in hockey, and when hockey stopped, everything stopped, because that was my world at that time. And I think a lot of it had to do with self-reflection. I identified myself as the hockey mom, as the one who was there. When it stopped, I didn't even know who I was anymore, because I was in that world for, well, since he was 10 years old, and he's still going at it, but I'm just not there every night. But you also have to change with who you self-identify yourself with. And if she identifies herself as, I'm that employee, I'm working, well, how can she identify herself differently?
Yep.
Now, at the stage of life that she's at now.
Yep.
She totally wants out. We're just
calculated.
Need to figure that last point out. We've done exactly what you've said. We've calculated the staying the extra 10 years. It's just not worth it. We just have to figure out the final details. I might have to book a call with Brock himself and figure that out.
So I want to follow up on that. I love this point, because I believe 100%. And to think about that, they say when people retire, they wither away and die, right? It's because we don't have identities. Think about what our work, right? All of our jobs, our careers, that is a massive part of our identity, right? So, and then Eric, Tara's probably in the same boat, right? She is this worker. She's had this job for 25 years or whatever, right? When you take that away, it's like losing your identity. You don't know what to do with your time, right? And I asked, and if you ask a lot of people the questions, like, what would you, because people always say, oh, I want financial freedom and I want to travel. Like, no. You don't travel now. To think that you're going to travel in 40 years is ludicrous. You're not a traveler. Okay. You have to, in order for you to travel, you have to be a traveler. That has to be your identity. Okay. I clearly will travel till the day I die. That is evident to anybody that I am a traveler. I'm not somebody who travels. I am a traveler. Fundamental difference, right? So when if everybody only has this, and you ask people, like, think about what the question we ask: what do you do for a living? That's one of our default questions when we meet somebody. We don't say, what are your dreams? What are your goals? What's your personality? What do you do for work? Oh, I'm a carpenter. Okay. You take carpenter away from a carpenter, who are they? That's their identity. They become lost. So you want to hang on to it by default. You want to hang on to your identity clearly.
It's extremely hard to change that. I mean, I did it when I left the automotive trade for 25 years, and finding yourself after that is really hard. And I think you hit the nail on the head. In retirement, or thinking about retirement, you got to know what you want to do. You got to have your hobbies. You got to have everything lined up, or else.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to change it. Tammy, you got another follow up?
Yeah, so that ties in, Eric, with what Brock is saying right now. As far as let's find out the why, let's do the plan. Once you have the plan, your wife will say, okay, I'm not doing this for another 10 years. We've got this figured out, and let's do the plan. As soon as you do that plan, I'm telling you, it takes off. Because I read Brock's two books, and I literally sat at a work meeting for 4 days. I was in Florida, and I went back to my hotel room that was paid for by work, and I sat there and I did the plan. And shit, you get excited once you know this is where I'm going. So do the plan.
Well, on that, like Tara, like for anybody that doesn't quit, right? So you're saying like, should I quit? Should I not? You're not quitting because there's no clear motivation to quit. There's no clear reason to quit, right? You know, kind of intuitively that you want to quit, but you don't really have a clear reason to quit, a clear substitute of what you're going to be doing. And Tara's a very intelligent woman. So I don't know why she chose you, Eric, but no, I'm just joking. But so like you got to replace, so someone that's intelligent, right, that needs to use their brain, they need to substitute that. So the thought of just like, what am I going to do with think about that. What am I going to do with myself? That's scary. Therefore, you default back to what you know, which is your identity as this employee, right? That's the problem. So you need to have separate identities outside of your work. Your work should be one aspect of you. So I know if you took away my work, I'd still be a traveler, right? And I'll give you an idea. When I stopped drinking, I didn't tell people that I'm not drinking right now. What I said is I'm not a drinker, because I was consciously aware of the difference that would have in my psyche. I kept saying I'm not a drinker. I don't say I'm not drinking. I didn't say I'm taking a break. I didn't say I'm not drinking right now. I said I'm not a drinker. Right? I don't drink.
Yep. That's what I say. I don't drink. Yeah.
I don't drink. And even here, like these people don't know me. So I'm at the bar and I said, can we get you this? They're trying to serve some cocktail. I'm like, I don't drink. That's all I said. I didn't say, I'm going to take a break. I'm not interested. I just say, I don't drink. Done. That's my identity. I'm not a drinker. Right? Anybody else? Michelle.
I just have to say, as someone who's like, again, I'm growing, I'm like observing all my pieces, but I realized that by hustling for the past 5 years nonstop, I disconnected from my hobbies, from my identity. And I went to a networking event yesterday, and it was so refreshing because I've gone to a lot of those, and sometimes it's like a pompous room of like bullshit and you just want to leave, right? Because everyone has everything and nothing, and I'm like, no, I hate this. But yesterday was like a mix of people. It was like real estate investors and like property management people, and just like regular anyone, and people started talking about their hobbies and their passions, and I left, I was so much more energized. You had all kinds of people in there. You had people with disabilities. You had a guy who was like, he was blind, he was teaching piano. I was just like, this is so much better. Like it was very inclusive in that way, and people just talked about who they were before they were just working 24/7.
Love it.
And it was so nice. I just wanted to share that.
I love that. I love that. Thanks for sharing. I love that. There's just change the conversation instead of the standard, just like, what do you invest in? What do you work in? Right. That's just work. It should be one aspect of our identity. Right. So any other questions? Okay. So for homework, if you want to do homework, and it's tough, and I will gladly, as I do with all my sessions, if you take this seriously, I will gladly follow up with you on you doing the exercise of finding out your real, what do you want your life to be like? It's not an easy exercise. It's really, and especially if you're a couple, because most couples I've seen, they've never sat down like, what do we want, right? It's just kind of like there's certain things that you might have in common, but like the deep why, they're rarely aligned, which is not good in a sense, right? So I think that if you are, for the people that are in a relationship or married couple, whatever, this is a great exercise for you to do with your partner, like, and take it seriously. Right? When I say take it seriously, you put it in your calendar, you block off 3 hours. And if you don't get it done in 3 hours, you block off another time, and you ask real questions, not saying, hey, what do you want? I want to travel. I want to do that. No, that's not garbage. Just save yourself and don't do that. If you're going to do it like that, don't do it. I'm talking about deep stuff. You should have these goals, and then you write down the emotion attached to that goal. and then envision it, feel it. That's how you're going to get somewhere. Until you have that, guys, most people are just going to spin their tires. They're not going to have any clear direction on what to work on, what to invest in. Cool.
Cool.
On that note, I'm going to go have a diet cocktail and listen to some live music and enjoy life.
Good for you.
Hey guys, all the best. Love you. See you in 2 weeks. Sorry. See you in 13 days. 13 days. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Brock.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brock. Thanks, Brock. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.